Should I just talk shit about Jeffrey as he's joining and just
Jeffrey too.
Do it. Ready to go.
oh, your brothers?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Jeffrey,
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I don't know what was going on. I'm so sorry about that.
It's okay.
All good.
Technology,
We're all
man.
figuring it out.
We got on early to make sure settings were working. Like
All right.
Because everything messes up. Oh, so Jeffrey, you haven't met Brandon or Chris yet. So
No.
Brandon and Chris, this is Jeffrey.
Nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Our voices have met. I mean, your voice has. I've met your voice, but I haven't
Yes,
met
and
you.
right, exactly. And I've met your playing as well, but yeah, it's good to see you.
Are you in New York?
Yeah, I'm in Virginia with my family right now, but normally
Oh, no kidding. Where in Virginia? Because I'm in Virginia right now.
I'm in Fredericksburg.
No shit. Well, I'm in Ashland. I'm like an hour away from you. So,
Not even. You're like 40
Yeah,
minutes.
we should try and meet up for a social distancing thing at some point.
More
I might be going up to
projects.
New York City in a couple of weeks. We'll see.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'll be back up there at the
Yeah.
end of this week, but that's so cool.
Okay.
Did you grow up in Ashland or?
No. My wife is from Ashland, but we actually moved out
Oh.
here from Honolulu in September. So we're living. Yeah, we're living here. I really like Richmond. We lived here before about 5 years ago, but we're back in the swamp. You know.
That's so cool. Wow. Yeah, you're just down the street.
So how did you and Alan meet?
Well, we sat across from each other at a Greek restaurant, like right before the pandemic.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, no, remember I was supposed to move to New York.
You
and
were?
Oh,
I
that's
went-
right. So you met in New York.
Yeah, I went
At
for
a-
that job interview for that whole week.
Which Greek restaurant?
I don't even. It was some like hotel. Like it was the
Yeah,
okay.
most random thing ever. But that's like Phil. Phil like is like a wine and diner. He knows all the places. And his pianist played for one of the flute players at the concert. So it just was like such a random thing that we ended up meeting because he came with her to the restaurant,
Right.
and then we ended up sitting across from each other and just like chatting and drinking and having a good time. And I brought
Awesome.
up Slow Drip, of course, because I'm the biggest Slow Drip, evangelical.
Immediately. Have you done DMT?
No, but like he told me like about his like vocal background and all that stuff, and like weirdly enough, in my head, I started imagining this piece like out of like it literally
That's
was just
awesome.
instantly I started like hearing the way he talked and like the way he described how he sings and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, I need to work with this guy.
That's awesome. All right, cool.
But you know,
Yeah, I
what's,
like-
Makes sense.
what's crazy about that story too is I was there because I was going to do a concert with Barbara, that flute player,
Mhm.
like the next week, and then she ended up having to cancel because she was very sick.
Oh,
So we changed where the concert was. Turns out she had COVID.
dude, I got sick when I got back to Hawaii. Like I was,
Really?
yeah. Yeah.
With it?
I don't know. I couldn't get tested at the time. Like no one, when I was sick, it was before New York shut down. So
Yeah.
it was weird. Yeah. I just felt like crap for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. In January, I was at NAMM in Los Angeles. Apparently, it was there at that time, but like I got antibody tests, and apparently I didn't get it. But a lot of people I knew who were at that thing, they call it NAMthrax, and it was like it was the
Every
same,
year.
the worst thing ever. And so I guess it wasn't COVID, but it could have been. I mean, there were like 100,000 people there. You know? It's
Yeah, I
crazy.
wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
So, Jeffrey, originally when I sent you that track, like what was going through your head? How did you approach like your vocal takes to it? Because I think you did an incredible job. Like,
Yeah,
your,
what the hell?
your range is just out of this world, man. Like from the like etherealness of the high range that you have to the like gutturalness of the like almost throat singing that you do. It's just absolutely, it blew my mind.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, what was going through my mind was not too much, and that's kind of how I tried to keep it. So, the track you sent, I listened to it one time through, and just kind of let it sit, and then I listened to it again, and I just started kind of singing over top of it, and not trying to think too much about what I was doing. Just kind of let my voice go where it wanted to go, and I did that one time, and then I thought that kind of wasn't that bad. Let's try it again and record it. So then I recorded it, and that's what I sent you the first time. But it was really just
Perfect.
it was just surrendering to kind of whatever emotions or whatever I was getting from listening to that track, and just kind of letting my voice do what it wanted to do. But it definitely wasn't like I was trying to channel some specific thing or think I need to sound like this or whatever. And even the sounds that I make, like I'm saying things that kind of sound like words, but it's all nonsense. It doesn't mean anything.
I love that, by the way. That's some of my favorite thing.
It's kind of, I've always admired other artists that have done that, so I just thought, let me try it and just sort of make sounds that
psychedelic, man.
That's what we do. That's what makes what we do magic. Like, so I'm glad that you were able to tap into that. But yeah, Chris. So like when we sent you the track, what was going through your mind when you heard Jeffrey's voice?
This is complete garbage. I hate this guy, and it's just no. I'm kidding.
That's how I feel about myself. So yeah, that's not good.
It was absolutely incredible. That was the thing I was going to try to say is that it fits so well with what we kind of do, and I think this is the first time we've done a track where we all haven't been together in the same place. We kind of built it one at a time, because normally we're all sitting in a studio. We used to record at my studio back in Honolulu, and we would sit there and probably have something to smoke and just do exactly what you said, which is let your mind go blank and play, and there's no wrong notes, which is really freeing me. And I don't know, Jeffrey, are you a classical singer? Like, are you classically trained kind of thing?
Yeah, I am.
In opera or in something like that.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm a classical cellist, and there's this thing about like you've hit the wrong note or you're playing it wrong or you're always self-criticizing and it gets kind of tiresome after a while. So Slow Drip for me was a way to finally break out of that and just be like, there's no wrong notes. It's whatever you want to play, make noise, who cares? It's whatever. And we all kind of vibe off of each other. And so when I heard the vocal track, I was like, yeah, this guy gets it. It's exactly what we do. And that's the nice thing is that this Slow Drip DMT amoeba thing can include any number of people and kind of open up to that space. And so, I was excited to be able to finally work with you guys remotely and find out that it still worked, So I think that was kind of my thought about it was like, oh, this is awesome. Like we can keep working. Yay. I don't have to be sad that we're not all together.
Yeah. I think it's absolutely amazing that we were able to do something like this. And literally none of us were in the same room or let alone the same state. I guess Chris and Jeffrey are both in Virginia, but I'm in California and then Brandon's in Hawaii, and like, it just all like manifested in a way that it's like magic. It's so cool.
The first thing was, getting the backing tracks together. So you guys had already been kind of working on it a bit, and then you sent me some tracks and I made a mix of it. I wasn't actually planning on playing on it. I think in my mind, like maybe I thought, oh, this is good to just do with, you guys and the voice is kind of like the main thing, And so I didn't think about putting cello on it initially, just for the record. I think Alan was the one who kind of pushed me.
I kind of pushed that. I'm glad though, because cello and the guitar and the voice and the Moog, like all of them have their own like textures that it brings to the track, and like each time we added something in, like the track just got deeper and more depth.
Yeah, that's the thing about it is that we added a percussionist when we did the yoga set at Ala Moana that one time, and that guy fit in really nicely. And the thing is that it's just that's what's great is that we could add in more people, and it's nice to have it as 4, because that's, I don't know, it's a good number to not be too many people, and it gets a little bit too much sometimes. But
12-man jam
everything is completely unique, and it's like these characters in the piece. So I really like the fact that everybody has a very unique sound that contributes to this. I don't even what is it, a song? What did we make? What is it?
It's a message from the Pleaidians, dude. It's a message from the Pleaidians.
Yeah, there you go.
Is it Pleiadians or Pleiadians? I don't know. I call them Pleiadians.
The
Pleiadians.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's Pleiadians. Yeah. But it's nice listening back, because I feel that the guitar, me, and the cello all are kind of they're their own voice in a way too. So it doesn't kind of sound like me fronting a band. It's very much like a conversation between, or really 4 kind of different voices coming together, which is really cool. Yeah. And also, I've always thought cello and countertenor are a really nice combination.
Crazy combo.
And absolutely, a lot of people aren't writing that. I don't know why, but I think just kind of like countertenor cello stuff.
Yeah. Well, we should do more, because
it's really nice. The sounds complement each other, I think, really well.
Yeah.
There was a few times there. I was like, was that cello or was that Jeff?
Me too. I was like, was that me or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just like Jeff, I listened to it. Well, I listened to it previously, you know, when mixing the stereo mix for it. But then I did 2 takes, and I kept the first 2 takes because that was the most heartfelt. My mind wasn't trying to wander too much, and it was like there were, you know, there may be some quote unquote technically wrong notes in there, but some of the randomness kind of added a whole new counterpoint to it, which took the thing in a different direction. I was like, oh, well, that sounds kind of cool. So yeah, I think not overthinking it, not editing it too much, other than some squeaks and pops here and there, you know, that just keep it pure and keep it like a meditation, like we all did this kind of in real time. Brandon, how did you do your guitar part? Did you just improvise that too, or did you kind of script it out?
Identical to you and Jeff. I listened to it like once, and then I sat down, smoked a bowl, took a few deep breaths, and just did 2 takes. I was like, all right, yeah, let's just send it and can take out stuff or whatever. Yeah.
And I went through a period too where, you know, right after I recorded it, and I thought, oh, you know, I think this is going to be good, and I sent it. And then I did go through this brief period of kind of doubt where I'm like, you know what, that wasn't very good. If I you know, I could do it again and it would be much better. And I didn't actually record, you know, later on when I was thinking that, but you know, I would just sort of like try to do things, you know, kind of in my head and think, oh, this might be better. But I realized that no, all of that would change it very much, and it would become very forced.
I think we all go through that.
No matter how much I did it, I would never be happy with it too.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the classical musician in you saying, I did it wrong.
Yeah.
There's some like iffy notes that I hit in that, and I was like, oh, I could do it again and make it much cleaner. But if I did that, it would be, what am I doing?
I think that's what I like most about like the way that we approach this is like so many people nowadays are taking out all mistakes in every mix, and it almost takes away the life out of some mixes. You know,
listening to Jericho's mixes like make me sad.
And thank you, Jericho, for being our boss.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I think I saw that in a tweet the other day. Somebody was like, talking about like even video mixes from movies. Like, you know, I was watching, weirdly enough, Independence Day yesterday, and that's one of the best mixed movies I think like action movies I think I've listened to in a long time, because it was a lot of analog sounds, and it was just like mixed really well, and it seemed like they weren't trying too hard to make everything perfect. They were just kind of like making it balance in the mix, and I just really enjoy that. Like, because sometimes the best things, like, because we're human, right? We make mistakes. Like, we're not robots, and I think that's where a lot of the human elements come from, those mixes.
Yeah, I think you know, in terms of movie soundtrack, like you know, this kind of thing would be perfect for visual, you know, representation. Like, you know, I really, that, you know, we've kind of built this thing up. So it started with a synth, and it was synth and guitar, then vocal, then cello, and then it went from a stereo mix to a spatial mix to, I'd like to see it, you know, represented in like an actual space, you know, with an array, you know, so that it's kind of immersive. And then, you know, to put some kind of video or VR kind of content to it, you know, it really has potential to kind of expand and continue to expand itself, which I really enjoy, you know, because I come from classical and a rock background, and like the rock music we mix is stereo, and it's meant to be listened over, you know, in your car and on your headphones, and that's about as far as it goes. So I'd like to see it, you know, continue to kind of move in this direction where it becomes more and more you know, experiential somehow, which I think would be kind of cool.
I really like that we're pushing the technology as far as we're pushing our instruments. You know, like as far as Jeffrey pushes his voice, as me the synth and the clarinet, you the cello, Brandon the guitar. Like, I think we're just like literally pushing the limits of what like we think music is, or like what the technology can do.
We wouldn't have been able to do this like you know, a short time ago. Like it's gotten to the point where we can kind of experiment and it won't suck, you know.
Yeah.
So it's cool. Like, we live in a good time for this kind of thing. And, you know, I mean, aren't they like releasing like ambisonic headphones and stuff now?
Apple's new Pro
Dolby is going to be at home, you know, like you're going to want, like for movies, like Independence Day, they're going to remix it. It's going to be in Dolby Atmos on your headphones, so that while you're at home, you can get the theater experience. You know, and so, yeah, I think all churches and all movie theaters should turn into concert venues. You know, we should go rent out a movie theater and just play our stuff over the array.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. I think that's a great idea, because as you know, the streaming thing gets bigger, movie theaters are going to be looking for ways to continue to keep their profits up. And if you could sell tickets to a musical concert event that's all immersive in Atmos and video, I think that's a really great way to go.
So Hollywood, if you're listening, we are the people you should call in order to do like this, you know.
We're ready.
We are ready.
I don't hear a lot. I don't know what's actually. I actually was going to ask you guys if you knew, because I don't know a whole lot of content right now that's using spatial audio in.
No one's doing
in a
Never heard
in a more virtual kind of way. So I know that you can place things around, so it sounds like you're in the concert or you're blah. But like what I tried to do is like we want to like you're in like if you're going to smoke a bowl, like you want to feel like you're in outer space. Like you're like planets are orbiting around you and stuff. And I feel like I haven't really heard a lot of material yet that kind of uses this kind of.
And it's funny that you say that, like you want to feel like you're in outer space, because like originally when I met Jeffrey and we started talking and I started bringing up this idea in my head, I originally was thinking of like, European cathedrals with like the artwork on the ceiling and like how people would feel in the 1800s when they would go to church and listen to the music and literally feel like it elevated them up into the heavens.
It's right, transcendent. It's like cathedrals are some of the most psychedelic places I've ever been. I love cathedrals. Like I love Jeffrey would know St. John the Divine on the Upper West Side, going in there and sitting there, and the sound comes from it's something about the space that the sound diffuses, so it's very quiet. And yet these echoes come in and they swoosh and they swirl,
and you don't even have to use microphones. I mean, that's what's amazing. It's just the architecture. Yeah. But that's what people are. We're human beings crave that. We all want to transcend, and because we're so advanced in so many ways at this time. It's in a way that the problem with that is that sometimes we don't have this experience. We understand everything. We feel like there's nothing to really transcend. But that's what I think is very unique about what music can do, and especially music within this kind of a context. It really gives the people an opportunity to think, well, this is something that I don't quite understand. This is something very new. And it does make you kind of feel like you're going out of yourself. You're kind of looking down, and it's, and in this time that we're living in right now, people really want to do that. And it's a very beautiful, I think, opportunity that we can give people.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea that you could be at home, because everybody's at home right now because of this thing, and who knows how long, yada yada. But it's like if you could have that out of body experience somewhat brought on by your listening experience, and I think the fact that you can even get that on headphones is kind of cool. I mean, I didn't really believe that it would be that convincing, and as it goes, like it'll become more and more convincing because you got to measure your head, and you got to, everybody's going to have a personalized, response for their own, face, so that the sound actually it becomes more realistic around you, and that'll get built in, I'm sure, to more consumer grade stuff as we go. But for now, the effect is I think it's there. I think you do get that sense of space, I could go on about that for a long time, sense of space at home.
Can you explain to us again, like what you were trying to explain via text on how you needed kind of something in the center to ground the ear?
Yeah, actually, so I redid this mix like, I don't know, a dozen times because I just wasn't getting it. And I'm using this program called Sound Particles, which is used in movie making a lot when you want like a tornado of stuff, or like a building that's in an earthquake, it can really do that for immersive theater experiences, for like action movies and stuff. They use that they put little clips of sound effects like glasses breaking and things, and it creates these particle spaces that make you feel like, you're inside this hurricane or something, and it moves around. But I thought, okay, we should use this for our music because that's just fucking cool, and we should try it. And it's a bit tricky to learn. I'm just learning it. But what I did find out was a couple of things, and I'll try to be brief. Which was that low frequencies build up like a motherfucker, and you need to trim them out as much as possible ahead of time. So there's no EQ in the program, unfortunately, at this time. So you have to bring your clips in, and you have to prep them all EQ wise. So I originally had them in full spectrum because that works for stereo. It's like you really want the bass to thump. But when you put it in this program, all of that stuff starts to build up, and it's like a smoke screen. Like the low end it whites out any kind of sense of space. I don't know why. It just blocks everything, and you can't really get a very clear picture of it. So I rolled off like a ton of low end on everything, even more than I thought I would, like up to like 300 hertz or something on even the cello and stuff, and just to keep the tone, but not to have any of the garbage below that. And that really helped to clean up, because now the highs are coming through, and it helps your ear pinpoint. So I think our hearing really picks up highs for some reason, and it helps that location, whereas bass frequencies don't seem to be coming from any particular location, as well as extremely high frequencies. They don't seem to be coming from any particular direction. And then the other thing was, so trimming the bass out was good. And then I had a reverb. So I had Jeffrey's vocals going through I created like a tube and it had all these little particles I printed the reverb. So I made these like effect reverbs, and I printed them so that it was an audio file. Put the audio file on these points in space, creating kind of like, I wanted it to sound like you're in a cathedral or like some kind of well or tube or something. Mm-hmm. What happens is if they're all on a radius, if they're on a circle, they all hit the center, which is the listener, at the same time. So you don't get a sense of distance. So you have to distribute them in space, first of all, so that they're coming in at different times. And then if they're moving, it creates too much. Your brain just can't process it all. It's like you don't know what you're listening to. It's like a cloud, and there's no definition. So what I did was I fixed them. I used less of them, and I fixed them at certain points and created a static background. So the reverbs are hitting I can show you the thing here. Actually, let me. It might be easier to just do that. Which is that I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah,
but you see the yellow points, those are the reverbs, and they're static, along with the green and the orange. They're not moving. That's the guitar, cello, and the vocal reverb. So there are just these points in the spherical space. And then you see the things that are moving. I don't know if you can, but that's like Jeffrey's voice, the guitar, the thing. And I put them at 180 degrees. So they're kind of like in phase with each other, because you want them to kind of come in at the same time. So that's what I wound up with, was creating a background so that it's static, so that the motion is perceived as motion within this static space. So like a cathedral, like you have a background that helps you to realize that there is stuff moving within it. If the whole thing is moving, and if stuff is moving in different directions, it just muddied it up, and it didn't sound as effective. So
yeah, thank you for showing us that too. That was very cool to kind of visually see what you did.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. Here, I'll see if I can zoom in on this. It's trippy. I love this program. It's so much fun to kind of work. But here, I'll see if I can do this. So here's the 3D view of it. So that's our mix in the 3D view.
Oh, so I see what you're talking about with the cylinder now.
Yeah.
From the bottom to the top.
Anyway, so that it's kind of hard to see on this thing, but that's the gist of it. Everything was orbiting. I had vocals like up a few meters, so orbiting above your like, if you think about this as your x-axis, the vocals elevated, so it gives you the sense that it's kind of floating above, but it's orbiting in this plane. The guitars are like here, and the cellos are like here. And then Alan's thing was in stereo, but I kept them at 90, I guess 180 degrees, so that the phase doesn't change, so that you're still in the center of the whole thing. and they're rotating at different speeds. Nothing too scientific, but that was the most effective. I should say the most effective mix was that, and I got there after like 12 tries.
It's almost like you literally just built architecture with music. Like you built a structure,
built a cathedral
with frequencies.
Sonic space.
Yeah, it's so much fun. So that's where I want to see. So Flow Drip already sounds like, I like how we sound in stereo. That's already psychedelic. But like now, like we could have this thing where it's like, it's in outer space now, and I think that's the natural progression for it.
I love it, and I'm glad that you were able to work with us, Jeffrey, because the classical elements of what we do, I think, is what really like brings a uniqueness to a lot of the kind of tracks that we do with the clarinet, the cello, even Brandon's shakuhachi and the singing bowls. Like it's just like a mesh of all these different instruments that come together and create this like tonal palette of like relaxation, but also it like challenges you. It can get kind of uncomfortable sometimes. And I think you really tapped into that, and it was awesome to hear that through your recordings.
Well,
Jeffrey,
thank you.
What was the story that kind of was there a story, or was it all, I mean, like what was the emotion as you went through it? Like what were you thinking, or not thinking, but like in looking back at it, like were you telling a story, or what was your approach, I guess, to the whole thing?
Well, I've always, since I was a really little kid, actually, I really enjoyed listening to music where you had people kind of at the time, like in the early 90s, there was a lot of interest in taking sort of electronic music and then combining various things like, Gregorian chant, or, various, kind of more music from Africa or South America, and using these very kind of traditional musical forms, whether they be European or Asian or African, and kind of combining it with whatever the cutting edge technology was of that time. And I always thought there was something very cool about that, because you're kind of honoring something from the past that obviously is quite powerful and means a lot to a lot of people, but bringing this new kind of very fresh perspective. And that was something that in the early 90s, there was a lot of interest in that, I feel, and then it kind of like dwindled. But I always just thought that was very cool, and something I've always kind of wanted to do in some sort of a way, but I've never done it. My background in recording and performance has been, for the most part, pretty standard, which is wonderful, and I'm very grateful for that. But I always thought it would be interesting to do that. But when I was, Alan, when I first met you and you were talking about what you were doing, I was immediately kind of interested, because I'm like, oh, that's something that's always kind of, I think what I could contribute to that maybe could be kind of cool. I don't know, I've never done it. But when I was recording it, I definitely was not trying to tell some sort of a story or get a certain point across in any way. I was just kind of thinking back to those, experiences I had as a pretty small child, listening to that music, thinking, wow, this is interesting. And just trying to kind of tap into what I was feeling at the time, listening to that, tapping into that same emotion, so that hopefully other people, when listening to this, would feel something similar. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wow,
I like that. Yeah. Man, we did it. We really did this.
I hope so. Yeah.
Right? It sounds incredible. Like I knew what I thought it sounded like in my head, but like manifesting it was a totally different thing. Like, and then the COVID and not being able to, because we're so used to being able to feed off each other's energy in the room. I wasn't sure it would quite come across this way, but I think it did just as good as when we're in the room together.
Yeah, we met in some astral plane to jam that out.
Right.
Beyond time.
And that was very hopeful for me. That made me feel like, that it can continue, which was up until this point, not entirely sure that was possible, because we've been falling back on old recordings that we made together, like from last year. And we have a lot of that, but we hadn't been together in the same room in a long time. And, it's inevitably going to change a little bit. And I think we talked about this before, which is that when we improvise, to get into that empty flow space, so that you're not trying to do anything deliberately, and yet you're being expressive, and inevitably, if you're a good musician, which I think we are, especially from the classical side, that's the one thing that helps, I think, is to know where a change in mood is supposed to kind of happen. And like when those moments happen, they kind of come off as sounding like, oh my God, we listen back and like, how the fuck did we know how to change right there? Like, oh my God, we're psychic, you know? And it's like, well, a good musician would probably change.
Yeah.
Something. And all three of us or all four of us are doing something at a certain point, and it comes to a point of confluence of those things. And so that makes it sound cohesive. And then they kind of wander and then they come back, you know, and then that's kind of, there's an ebb and flow. There's moments of very clear harmony, and then there's moments where it's like it blows apart into things. So it's always interesting to me to listen, because I don't remember playing it. I don't know if you guys remember what you played. I'm like, I have no idea. I can't do it again.
I honestly probably, if I tried right now, couldn't recreate that patch on the Moog. Like, that was just me spinning. I mean, so it's so funny how I got that Moog, right? The subharmonicon. And I had a span of about 2 weeks where I literally had so much creative energy flowing through me. I don't think I've had that much in my life. And I just spent hours and hours and hours. I was just enthralled with the device, and I was just trying to learn it as fast as I could. And luckily, learning from what we do in the studio, I recorded everything. I just hit record. And, you know, and then I would go back and I took a week off, and then I went back and re-listened to some of the stuff, and I was like, this is what I heard in my head. And then I sent it to Jeffrey, and I was like, dude, I think I got it.
I remember that.
Cool.
Yeah, and then it just got the ball rolling, and it's funny how that happens. It literally just took a $600 purchase for that energy to happen. And there, you know, talk about like whatever you want to talk about with you know, thinking about spirits or whatever, but like, there was some energy in this room those 2 weekends that aren't here anymore. Like, and I don't even know how to explain it, but like there was something in me that just knew that I needed to record my introduction with that instrument. And I'm glad I did, because I got a lot of solid stuff from it.
So you say the feeling of energy came from the fact that it was a new thing that you were just beginning to learn and experiment.
Yeah, I think that's where it came from, because I know this is my first step into modular, and I guess it's semi-modular, but still, like, the whole concept of creating music with knobs and switches and patches versus a piano is totally new to me, you know, and so really diving into that and just like coming at it from a perspective of like a child's mind of a new kind of way of thinking about a process. And I think that's what kind of psychedelics do in a sense. It kind of breaks free your normal set pattern of thinking of things. And so with a new instrument, it was really good for my brain to rethink how I create music. In a sense, it's like, you know, you don't have a keyboard. How do I create a chord structure? Well, it's, you know, tuning this knob, tuning this oscillator, and then tuning that oscillator, and then like creating the rhythm from those oscillators to pulse. And then, you know, then you start playing with feedback, which creates that like swirl in the mix, and you can do all of that on the Moog. And then finding out how I could route it through the OP1 and use its delay and feedback to create this like cathedral like swirl. It was just really fun experience. And then we've got Brandon's guitar playing, which like I remember, Brandon, you mentioning that Jeffrey's voice kind of influenced you in a way to play guitar that you don't normally play guitar. Can you expand on that?
Kind of like, you have a specific like style of like the way you're singing, and I was just kind of imitating the way you kind of your inflections, and that's really fun. It kind of inspired me to even take other songs like you even know and just try to imitate those. It's like a really different experience on playing guitar. Plus I have all these pedals and all these like crazy effects and to make it sound all nuts.
Yeah, Brandon has all the toys.
Make it sound all nuts. That's the mantra. Make it sound all nuts.
I remember first listening to it back with just the guitar on it, because Alan, you sent me a mix that was just like me and you,
right?
Which was nice. And then, but when the guitar was added, I mean, what was so beautiful about it is that there are moments where you are sort of echoing me, where you're kind of doing almost, or you're even foreshadowing what I'm about to do, which was also very cool. And then kind of taking it and then doing some sort of variation on it. it was this very kind of playful back and forth, and it never felt forced at all. It was just this completely organic, very beautiful conversation.
Yeah, you guys
that's
were having
exactly
a
how I
conversation.
felt when I was doing that.
But it was very beautiful. It was very cool.
Who came up with the title message from the Pleiadians?
That was me, of course. I had no idea that Israeli government official was going to come out and talk about the Pleiadians a couple weeks ago. Man,
I missed that.
If I would have known that was going to happen, I should have timed the release with that. I mean, I don't know.
We'll cut in a sound clip. We'll cut in a sound clip from the.
Well, it's an article because it was like originally an article in like the Israeli Times, and then it got translated into English, and then it hit the internet, and everyone was like freaking out about it. But literally, I think the track just was like, I'm always thinking about out-of-worldly experiences, aliens, all that kind of stuff, and it was just like this is so technologically advanced. It's like something people probably never heard before, and kind of speaking on the whole like thing of being in kind of like transcending kind of God like heaven space, is this like message from the Pleiadians. Like, I don't know, it just kind of came to me that way. I don't know if you guys don't like it, we can change it, but it was just kind of
no.
I love it.
It's good.
Yeah,
it's fun because I like to read about that kind of stuff. Am I a believer? Well, I don't know. I mean, well,
yeah,
it would be cool if somebody like was like, oh, like you've been to Pleiadia, have you? And you know our music. And by the way, you mispronounced some of our words, but we got the message.
So we can understand most of what Jeffrey was singing.
Yeah. Jeffrey was channeling a Pleiadian opera singer.
I think it was the perfect. I think it's a really the vocal thing. That was another thing the title actually. This is kind of interesting. I don't know if we really talked about this before, but the title that you sent me of the Pleiadian thing actually influenced the mix, because it's like, okay, like, because I always like to favor the vocal. I'm, coming from mixing rock and roll stuff, it's like the vocal is always the main thing. So I want to keep the vocal as the main thing, but it's like, it was fun to try to create a sense of like, there are space voices, it's like, it's one vocal and then a second vocal that they kind of overlap. So that's kind of cool. But then to add the spatial element, it's like there's nice breaths and breaks in the line of the vocal. So as it's rotating and there's a breath, you lose track of it for a second and then it appears somewhere else. And so it kind of has a sense of like there's multiple Pleiadians like singing at you. And then, the twinkly reverb in the back is kind of cool. It's kind of like stardust, So I thought, it's movie-like. It's nice. It's fun to think about the mix in terms of like a movie or kind of a theatrical piece. So I really enjoyed the theater of the whole thing, which came about because of the title for me.
Well, I'm glad that inspired you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought that was it was a good title. I like it. I like it a lot.
Good.
I hope they put it down here.
Well, the latest mix totally felt like you're just in an ocean and being like glowing space octopuses singing around you in the kelp forest and shit.
I love that about what we do so much is like almost everybody that listens to this kind of music invokes some kind of imagery. It fires those neurons in your brain that like make you see visions like
yeah,
like what's visual behind me.
It tickles your ears in such a way that it makes things kind of like pop open a little bit, which is unexpected sometimes, which I, like that's a cool thing. I had more to say on that, but I can't remember what I was going to say. But that was something that you had heard in an interview of one of our other pieces, right, Alan, from YouTube. That you had one of our things reviewed by some guys, if I remember.
Oh yeah, the guys out of South Dakota. Yeah, those guys got an interesting little podcast going on where they review indie artists that submit tracks and stuff like that. And so they do like donations to get your thing bumped up. And I've sent in a couple tracks from them. And I think I sent in Reemergence from Symphony No. 2. And of course it's 7 minutes long, and these guys have so many people coming on. They only played about 4 minutes of it. But like I did not expect the comments to come through the way it was, because those guys, you know, they can be kind of not harsh, but you know, it's like rating music, you know, like it's so opinionated. It's like one of the things that I hated the most about like juries in college. It was like, you know, you got this one professor that's just a freaking stickler that like you're never gonna please him kind of thing. But anyways, so the track was playing, and like one of the guys was like, my chakras have been blocked for years, and this just opened it up. Like, how do you expect like a track that you make to like open somebody's chakras? Like,
that's like the highest compliment you could ever get.
Yeah,
actually.
and then
Very
on the
good
show,
question.
like I think we have the highest rated song ever on the show, and it was an instrumental. They normally cap what they do with instrumentals. Like we got 10s across the board. The Russian judge gave us a 10. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
It was just,
There was a snarky 10 too. One of them was
it
like,
was a
I'll give it a
snarky
10
10.
for
for
whatever.
what it
take
is.
it.
It's like, I'll take it. Like he could not give it. He was like, listen to the mix. It's justified. Do you hear any mistakes in the mix? It's like, no.
Oh.
So yeah, that was.
I think that's what this music for me is doing, because like I felt kind of like pent up and frustrated with like the classical music world for a long time. It's like you're so judged all the time, you know. So it's like this kind of music. There's no, you can't. It's like just fucking listen to it. It's like whatever, you know. And it's and if you get into it just a little bit and you give it some time, because it's a slow drip. I mean, this kind of music is like slow as fuck, but it's for the people who are like smoking and getting groovy, you know. It's like people who have some time to like meditate. And I think that like there's like meditation music, but I don't think this is like meditation music. This is like you're gonna go on some kind of journey, you know, and it might not always be happy. It's like there's some dark moments and there's some nice, brilliant moments, and it really takes you through these highs and lows. So it's meditation music, but it's like it's got some drama in there, which I really like about it. So, you know, that's my opinion, you know, about that.
Well, yeah,
I think it's conducive to kind of going to an interior space within yourself, but it's not guaranteed to make everything all like sunshine and rainbows and unicorns.
Exactly.
Like it might bring up some stuff that maybe isn't so pretty, but at the end of the day, it's probably good that it's coming up. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you got it, Jeffrey. You totally got it.
Because that's true. That's what's inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you know,
so you better
it's like
get used
you
to it.
hear it in the vocal. Like the vocal is it's sweet, you know, it's beautiful. It has soaring passages that are very comforting. And then there's sections where it's kind of like, but don't forget about this thing that we need to think about, you know. And it's kind of like there are thoughts that are truly represented, even though there are no words, and it's not any particular story, like you said, but it is a story because it's coming out of you. And if you're not blocking yourself out and trying to like be something that you're not and be kind of in this pure flow state, well, then you are really telling the story of what's ever in your heart at that moment. So, you know, that's why for me it's so nice to participate in, because it does unclog your chakras for what it's worth. I don't know how else to say it, you know. But it's not always pleasant, you know. It's definitely a thing that can go to some dark and intense places sometimes, but in general it always comes out, you know. And sort of, yeah, I don't know. It's this, the four minds are better than one kind of thing, you know. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's the thing. It's like part of this, like being in quarantine thing, the hardest part has been like that human connection. Like I'm lucky that I have Hannah, my wife, you know, I've got her, and I go to work and I have met some people, but it's like I don't, you know, we're not meeting in the studio anymore. And that was a huge part of my like mental health, honestly, was those sessions, because like what we're talking about right now, like just getting in there and like having the creative process with you guys and like just being able to let loose whatever we wanted to let loose, bad, good, or indifferent, was healing. It was healing, you know? And like to not have that, it was kind of like it hit a little bit, which is why I think when I got that Moog, it was so energizing, because I was like, I felt that again, even though it was by myself. There was something in me that knew that if I got this going, it could create some kind of momentum. And it ended up working out, and I'm so grateful that we all linked up on this and it worked. Like it's just like
I'm so glad
tribute to the energy that we cultivated, and the fact that we can have someone as talented as Jeffrey like hop in on this just like it's such an honor, and like I'm so excited for this track.
Yeah, it broke it open for new stuff to happen, you know, which
Yeah,
I really think that's cool. Like there's a whole new tonality that we know we can work with now, and I love having a voice. You know, I know Brandon has some throat singing sections, you know, which was something that we had done before. I mean, you know, it's like there's I like adding in the human voice element of it, which I think really brings it to another dimension, John.
Well, let me just say that this was an immense honor for me, really, honestly, because I think this is one, it was just something fun that I'd always wanted to do, but two, I honestly think it's what the world needs right now. I really do.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. So this was just like something that was good for my own mental health in a way, because it was something that, you know, I knew that I was contributing towards something that I think is going to be sort of, in some way healing for people. And it was just, it's a beautiful thing. I'm like so happy. I'm so happy with the result. I'm very proud of it. And that's
blown away.
I'm stoked on it too. I mean, I feel exactly the same way. And so, you know, so we did this in 4 corners of the world, so to speak. Right. So when are we going to do it again? What's next? And how would we approach the new project? I mean, we can keep talking about this project, but like, I haven't met all you guys until today, you know, so, I mean, Brandon and Alan, but you know, I think, getting a you know, the posse together, so to speak here, and how would we do the next one if we're going to do another one? What would we do? And maybe Alan or Brandon can kind of talk about like how we've done it in the past, so that Jeffrey kind of knows our process, you know, because I don't know if you guys have talked, you know, privately or whatever, but like, you know, we did have kind of a process where it was like, okay, what are we doing today? And so
we would always try to set like an intention in our jam session. So we'd be like, you know, like we would kind of check in with each other. You know, we'd get everything set up, because that's the most important thing at first, right? It's like get everything set up, kind of have a chat, you know, after everything's set up, and just kind of like, usually because me and Brandon were working together, we had kind of already been talking about the mood of the day as we were working together. And then we'd get in
lava.
Lava, or whatever, because, you know, it's just like,
that's one of my favorites.
Whatever was on our, you know, minds at the time. And then we'd get in and set up and chat, hang out, you know, smoke, then, you know, like get into it. And like sometimes that would work and come out. And then sometimes Chris would be like, hold up. I had this dream where a whale was singing a song to me, and I need to manifest that. So we need to stop with all this crazy madness and like get into something beautiful. And then we would go in that direction, and then Chris would bring that out. Like, so it's kind of like when we're in together, that's kind of how it would work. But for this, I think the best way when we're all separate is start from some kind of foundation and an idea. So like all of the recordings that I have with the Moog, just starting from something basic like what we did, and then like kind of building from that if we wanted to work on another project in this kind of space. And maybe we can talk about intentions and stuff like that, and or we could, you know, we could either go that route, or we could say, hey, this is what we want to outline for this next thing, and then pick somebody to create a foundation and then build off of that. But I think when we're working separately, having somebody create the initial spark is super important.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think you know, having the pad or the rhythmic bass is important. The music might be perceived sometimes as possibly not rhythmic. It's super rhythmic though, because there's always a pulse. You know, the especially in the synthesizer, low. It's like there's always a motor kind of turning the whole thing, and so that's always got to kind of be there, because it does help to cohere the whole thing. Right. It's not just like, oh, let's throw sounds together. It's got development that kind of happens in a rhythmic pattern. You know, I would be interested to see what would happen if Jeffrey started it off the next time with a vocal, you know, some kind of a rhythmic, you know, Bobby McFerrin type thing, or like some kind of drone. You know, like drones work really well because they're just these pads that can kind of lead anywhere. You know, it you know, I don't know. It could be interesting to start it in a different location.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, if you're open to that, Jeffrey, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that I think it's just, since we're all separate, the most important thing is that somebody starts the process with some sort of a clear intention.
Right.
And then, but that intention should not overly inform what everybody else is going to add to it. Everybody else will then have their own opinion and kind of react, and then we see what happens. But yeah, who that person is, I think, can vary. And I'm more than happy to be that person for.
Yes.
Awesome.
Pretty cool. We just never done it before. That's, it's just something new to try. In the past, it was very vague. We did like ocean or sun or moon. It was kind of like we kept it pretty light. It was like, don't define it too much, but like, let's keep it so that, because your imagination can run over a number of things in any given sort of category. So it's like, okay, if I'm doing ocean, I like the ocean piece that's up on YouTube. It started off where it was kind of happy and bubbly, and then it went deeper and deeper, and we got into the whale song, and it actually did kind of represent different aspects of what ocean things.
Well, and it's funny how it worked out too, because the way it was mixed with the cello mic not quite being like there enough in the mix, but it was like far enough away that it literally made you feel like it was a cello underwater. Like
I guess I forgot about that. Yeah. Our conditions for recording have been less than perfect many times.
Well, I mean, Chris, you were doing two jobs at once, man. You were being an audio engineer and a performer, man.
Yeah.
Like, come on, give yourself some credit. It took a while for us to get like the whole setup down. So,
well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And 3 jobs, because I was also being hard on myself at the time, and I think I also think that the idea was keep it simple, and because we tried more advanced stuff and it just didn't work for us. It was like we had synth left, right, and cello, and that's it. And like that the fact that the sound came out in that way is kind of interesting, because it was only 3 mics.
Well, that's how you mix Symphony No. 2, right? Is just you did the synths in stereo
channels,
and then the cello. Yeah, to keep it. And I think it's funny how we always try to overcomplicate things, and that's our classical. I think, at least for me, that's my classical brain. I like, this needs to be like Stravinsky, like I need to have like the most complicated, like most advanced rhythmic. Like, but then at the end of the day, I turn into Philip Glass, and I'm like, keep it simple, stupid.
Oh, it's plenty complex just by virtue of how it comes together.
Exactly.
That's why we don't remember how we play it, is because like there's like, I like listening to what you guys are doing, because I don't entirely hear what's going on. I don't even hear what I'm doing until kind of after, and it's always kind of surprising, which I think is weird. It's like, where was I when I was playing? But it's
I love that about improvisation, because I'm like, I don't know, when I'm reading, I'm like always worried about, am I gonna miss this key change? Am I going to miss, this crescendo? Am I going to miss this phrase? Like, but when we're improvising, it's like I'm not even thinking about, am I not going to do something? I'm thinking about like what I feel.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like, how is Chris moving up the fretboard? And maybe if he's moving up the fretboard, I should move down in my lyrics so that it opens up the space. So it's just like I'm thinking about totally different things than I would when I'm reading music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that definitely came out over this project, the Pleaidian project, when we were in separate places. You're still listening to those things. So I think Brandon mentioned earlier that he followed the voice and even premonized some of the vocal lines in his recording of it. And I think for the cello too, similarly, I took cues from one or both of you guys and tried to not just copy it, but do something that was a call and response, or something that kind of worked off of that. There's always that you kind of listen around and hear the other people and what they're doing. So it's interesting, because again, that kind of leads to some cohesiveness about it, because you're playing with the other people. When it happens in real time, it's really kind of, it's interesting what happens. It's kind of cool. I remember we've looked at each other, Alan and I, we're like, what are we doing right now? And it's this
like
counterpoint.
The moment at KTUH,
building.
there was one of those moments for sure. And then in the Yosemite track too, from the Northwest Trail EP. Yeah, there's just a couple times where it's just like, how did that happen? How did we get here?
Yeah.
Where did we come from?
Okay, that's what we got to do. The next one, we got to go acoustic. So we have the vocal, but then we got to make it like Northwest Trail Part 2, where it's like, like folky, but
I like
drip
that.
folky.
Yeah.
So, hold on a second. I'm going to show you something.
Okay.
This is just thinking about like themes or whatever. Since
Yeah.
you said folky, I was in this used bookstore not that long ago, and I found this. This is what I'm reading right now. It's called The Celtic Consciousness.
Ooh.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, it's like kind of a history of the Celtic mode of thought and like lots of mythology and all that kind of stuff.
So
But
what can
anyway,
we-
I think even as I've been reading through this, I think I could easily be inspired by some aspect of this to kind of put something together that would inform some sort of a vocal track that might be, because of the subject matter, it might be a little earthier or kind of folkier sounding. That could be an interesting kind of source of inspiration.
Absolutely.
Good.
Well,
I like that.
Occurring to me.
In Celtic mythology, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if it's Celtic, but I think of places like Stonehenge and things like that. I think of, there's a lot of what we are into in that mythology too. There's geometry and star charts and
Very much.
monsters and dragons, and that could be something cool that we kind of play around with a little bit thematically.
Yeah.
We should also try to leverage the technology so that we can try to do this live too. I think we can do it. I think we can figure out a way to jam together.
I'm super stoked for that possibility in the future because I think this live would just blow people's socks off.
Yeah, I'm gonna maybe if this ever winds up on the internet, maybe if anybody has any like ideas, like maybe you can kind of drop a note, because I've been reading up on it. I'm not entirely convinced that there's a real workable solution yet, but maybe there is. Just
Well,
gotta keep hunting
there
around
is
for it.
there is a place here in San Francisco that's specifically built for spatial audio performances.
I see.
Did I send you the
Oh,
link
wow.
to that? Because this guy, he created it in like the 90s. And it's literally, there's over 300 speakers in this room. And there's just, in the middle of the room, there's just chairs set up. And people pay, and you come in. And he composed the music for it. But it's also open to like art installations, people like trying to get. So once things open up here, I'm really going to be, I think this is a great place to tap into some of that kind of stuff because it exists here. And so I'm hopefully we can maybe go in, because I think that's already set up for it. We don't have to buy like, all the stuff to like create the space. It already exists. Like,
No, we do that. Absolutely. We can blow all 300 of his speakers.
So what do you guys
So
think
like
about that?
really, really good, and like you should listen to us because we're really good, and you'll like it, and
It'll open your chakras.
it'll open your chakras.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
In the astral plane.
Hey, I mean,
Guaranteed.
these guys in South Dakota said so. So that must be true, right?
Be true.
Must be.
We're a spiritual
Okay.
we're a spiritual obelisk. That's what they said. We're a spiritual obelisk.
Damn it,
Oh.
Ethan.
Box probably.
Jeffrey, have you ever done psychedelics?
I have not.
Oh, okay. You get the vibe though, I think. Like you're just on
Oh
you
no,
probably
I do.
get it.
I feel like I've done them without doing them.
That's
I think
my
it's
wife. Like Hannah is on that level without ever, some of us need to break our programming and others
Right.
break it on other ways.
I was just born that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, look at where Alan is right now. I mean,
Right.
what galaxy are you traveling through?
Not this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I have no idea. I don't even know
I
how
don't
I
think
got here.
psychedelics are necessary to appreciate this
They're not.
music. Just for the record, it's not necessary. It's not even a real part of the creative process. I mean, smoking pot is like one thing that kind of loosens you up a bit, but I don't think I could play if I was on extreme quantities of anything. I mean, you still got to be kind of with it.
I've tried and it
Right.
sounds like
to
crap.
make anything happen. Yeah.
Well, although me and Brandon did a small amount of mushroom tea for that shroom tea album, and it did turn out pretty good. I like the shroom tea LP, but we also didn't lose our minds.
But I mean, we stayed in our safe space.
Yeah, we stayed in a safe space, and it was
Yeah.
tea.
Well, that's okay.
And it just like opened us into a kind of different kind of creative mindset a little bit, and it was nice, dude. I really enjoyed that, because we did that right before
raining,
everything
too.
shut down. The kids playing outside, the rain, all of that kind of added to the vibe, and we really tapped into all that.
You just reminded me of something. Sorry, not to interrupt,
good.
but I that was one of the first effects. You talk about chakra opening, like it opened my ears the first couple of times we jammed, and we would listen back, and I would listen kind of on repeat for a while. And I would go outside, and then everything sounded like a song. All of a sudden, the kids playing, the water dropping off the roof, the air conditioners. You started to hear it, like, I don't know whatever you were doing with the synth and the guitar, like the amount of detail and the high frequencies, I think is one of the things that is really interesting about what we've been doing, is that there's a lot of detail and complexity up in the high registers and just across the board. And when you get into that headspace and you listen to it after a while, you've been in it for an hour or two, and you go outside, and then suddenly it's like, that jazz thing. It's like the subways, like, it's got you start noticing the music in the world around you, and so we pull from that, and then you go outside, and your ears are just, for I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes for me, walking back to the car or whatever, everything sounded like a song, which I thought was a really cool after effect of the experience of playing it. So anyway,
what I really love about doing that with synths is what it is you're playing with harmonics. Because we're droning one note most of the time, and it's like you're setting it. I usually set it on E, because for guitar that's a good pitch, and and then you're just sweeping through the frequencies. And what's so cool about the System 8 and what I miss about it is you can really dial in harmonics and play melodies, like by opening and closing gates in the LFOs. And like you can really tap in, and that's what I loved about the Ocean piece, is there's parts, because it's just one freaking note, but it sounds so lush and open because you're getting all these harmonic sounds that, like, if you pay close enough attention, you start to hear them unfold, and it almost creates audio hallucinations because there's not a lot actually happening. It forces your brain to kind of hear melodies on its own. Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the thing. You hear melodies. It's like, what? Like, I'm hearing like the air conditioner background hum playing a melody now for like a couple, it doesn't last forever, but it lasts for that short amount of time. When you really tune into listening to that, that's what's so cool to me initially was exactly that. You start to hear melodies where there shouldn't be. So,
did this. Like, I'm just still in awe of this project, because I mean I'm horrible about listening to things on repeat, and I can't stop listening to this track. I just, like, it puts me in a mental headspace that I want to stay in forever. Like,
so how many times has everybody listened to it now?
I can't even count. Every night when I go to sleep
3 times.
Yeah, I've listened to it a number. I mean, normally when I record something, I record it, and then I get a take that I'm happy with, and I listen to it one time, and I think, okay, I'm good with that, and then I never listen to it again in my life, because listening to your own voice is great. But with this, I kind of forget that it's me too, which is actually really nice.
Nice.
Yeah, so I don't really have a problem listening to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I've listened to it about 50 times now. I mean, yes, I've been working on it, but like it doesn't get old.
No,
I don't know. It's weird.
I hear new things in it every time.
Different things every time you listen.
Changes,
yeah. There's something where we've tapped into something. Again, it would be interesting if we could continue to kind of. I mean, Alan, you always find these cool albums of these weird, bands and stuff, and I still haven't found anybody that sounds exactly like this. I mean, there's elements of psychedelic music and everything, and some of what we do is reflected in other things. I always find that some of these psychedelic albums, though, they kind of hit one thing and it kind of drags it out for a long time. But with this, it doesn't stay in one place too long. So I like that it moves and morphs and dances around a bit more, which keeps it interesting. I think that's why it's easier for me to listen to some of this than some technically,
Well, what I think I like about it is it's like literally taking Pink Floyd and introducing them to Sibelius.
Yeah.
It's like if Sibelius was alive when Pink Floyd was writing their album and they worked together. Like that's the vibe that I get from it.
That's a good kind of thing. Like as a classical musician, or as somebody who has influences with, I mean, your favorite bands or whatever. Like I'll maybe ask Jeffrey. Like, what did you have? You mentioned sort of ethnic or folk music or traditional music that you had in your mind as you were doing it. But are there sort of singers or bands or composers that you kind of might be influenced by in this kind of thing, just out of curiosity?
I'm sure that I am. I mean, there definitely wasn't anyone that I was holding in my mind like, this is what I'm trying to do. As far as like music that I was thinking, I mean, stuff from the 90s, like, you know, like Enigma and Deep Forest and Delirium, like those kind of people. But then also from the more classical side stuff, that's, I think composers like Sir John Taverner or Ervo Pärt, people like that create these kind of, without any electronic elements, but just this kind of very kind of mystical but very holistic kind of space through choral singing and through the human voice. So it's kind of a combination of those sorts of things that I think I was kind of, I wasn't aiming for that, but they were definite influences and probably what I was doing.
Fantastic. Yeah. No, that's great. And I can hear some of that too. I mean, for me, just I like my Russian composers, and so some of what the character for me in the cello parts, I always try to get a little, some kind of grit, you know, in there somehow, or to kind of really, I don't know how to describe it, but just things that I have heard in like Stravinsky or Prokofiev or something like that, and I just kind of, that's become part of my brain. So I always throw a little Russian bit in somewhere. And, you know, Brandon, what about your guitar playing? Was there anything in particular that you were kind of thinking about while you were making that part, or just yourself?
Yeah, just mainly focusing on what was going on in the piece itself. And that wasn't necessarily thinking of anybody in particular.
Yeah.
Who have been your biggest influences guitar-wise?
Oh, gosh. I guess a couple of like rock bands. There's this band Thrice. Those guys have like shaped the way I played in the beginning, but then also other players like John Petrucci or Paul Gilbert, Van Halen, kind of.
That's awesome.
Stuff like that.
Some of that stuff, were you using an E-bow on some?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
It sounded like, is it Peter Frampton? Is he one known for E-bow work? Am I crazy? Anyway,
possibly.
But your E-bow, I love the E-bow. You know,
yeah,
like
almost sounds like a singing bowl.
Yeah. I try to emulate a lot of my clarinet playing Copland. I've always been obsessed with the Copland clarinet concerto. And then also one of the best pieces I've ever performed in my life was Stravinsky's Three Pieces. So it's like I'm always going in between like this like Stravinsky / Copland kind of mindset. And I think we really pulled that off in the Northwest Trail EP.
In Northwest Trail,
yeah,
it's very Copland-esque. I love that. It's open and big sounding. Yeah, I really like that too. Yeah, we pick up on that from each other. I think, you know, the American. I guess I like Samuel Barber, you know, and Copland too, and those there's something. Yeah, I don't know. It's but see, that's a mood to me. You know, I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds of technical things, but that's a mood. You know, it's like the big open mountain range or the big and those are the kinds of things that I think kind of come in. So
now, in regard to what we've been talking about with the cultic kind of thing, something to tap into is, of course, now that I try to bring it up, I can't think of the composer's name. Whatever.
The Celtic thing?
Yeah, he's a composer for band music, and he does all this band music. But anyways, he went to the Ireland and UK and stuff, and he went and recorded on the old style, like a recording thing that was like a backpack. It was so old. And he would like go to these drunk like people in the bars that would sing these tunes, like Celtic tunes that have been passed down forever and ever and ever, record them on this like phonographic old style from the early 1900s recording device, take it, bring it back. He was Australian. He would bring it back while he was composing in America, and then write music based off of these like tunes that were passed down from time to time to time. So he would like start out with the vocal like kind of thing, and like he would actually write the time signatures as they were singing them, even if it wasn't in like a specific time. He would like alter the time so that it fit the vibe of the the tonal piece, and it just brought that up to me because I was thinking about all the cultic stuff. So that's an interesting idea to go from, is just like starting off with some kind of like cultic-ish kind of vocal line and building from that.
Yeah.
Right, and that's something I could do. I mean, I know a lot of those kind of things, like kind of these traditional Celtic melodies, which we could even start with one that exists, or come up with something that's sort of roughly inspired by that sound. It might be something brand new.
It was Percy Granger. Sorry to interrupt you. Percy Granger.
Percy, that name does sound familiar, actually.
Yeah. He's got a couple of good pieces. It's because I grew up in the band world. Like, Percy Granger is like one of the premier literature composers in the wind ensemble world. Like, if you play in a wind ensemble, you're going to eventually play one of Percy Granger's pieces, because he was like in the early 1900s with the military bands. He was arranging stuff specifically for them and not just orchestra. So that was a big deal for the band people. But yeah, I just thought that was an amazing story. I actually heard Colonel Arnold Gabriel, who was a conductor for the Air Force during like World War II and then all the way up. I think he just recently died. Maybe he's still alive. If he is, he's over 100 years old. But he told me that story when he was conducting one of the ensembles I was playing with, because he knew Percy Granger personally. This guy was actually a little bit crazy. He would he'd get arrested all the time in America. Like, they'd find him like sleeping on a bench somewhere and stuff like that. I mean, it takes kind of a special personality to go to the UK with a backpack that's basically a recorder and like go up to a drunk person and be like, "Sing me your cultic song. I'm going to appropriate it."
Right. That's a specific personality.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I grew up in the band world hearing all of that stuff, so it reminded me of that. But yeah.
That's awesome. Bartok too, I think, right? Didn't he went and made field recordings?
Yes, actually, Bartok did. Yeah.
I like
those.
I like that idea too. Just recording, like me and Brandon tried to do this a little bit. It's just like taking our recording out, like wherever we are in nature, and just recording the sounds that we get and adding that into a sample pack, because we could tap into that
I'll add my beach samples.
Yeah. That comes in handy as well. For weird audio things that we're trying to do.
I'm interested in taking those concepts maybe and maybe bending them. Like if you got a bit of dialogue between two people, if I were going to play around with it, this is actually something I've been wanting to do. Is you take the dialogue, you throw it through some program to make it into some kind of MIDI data, and then we send it through your synth somehow, so that you turn the dialogue into the notes of whatever it is that, so you kind of abstract it and put it through some synthesis in order to make it into something else, I think, and then we fuck with it in outer space.
Yeah. This is way off topic, but do you think that sound is different in space because of the amount of oxygen that's there? Like, let's say we were actually on the space station someday and we're performing a concert up there. Like, how can you even contemplate what it would sound like up there?
Well, it has everything to do with temperature, humidity, and pressure and all that. Yeah. So actually that program that we're using, the sound particles program, they're very fancy, and they built all of that in. So you can actually make it sound like you're on a mountaintop if you want. It actually compensates for the air pressure. So
wow.
The next one we do with the singing bowls, we could make it sound like we're standing on Mount Everest. I'll set it to 30,000 feet and see what happens.
Is there a limit to that?
Could you actually set it?
Well, there's no sound in you need air, right? So no sound, no air, no sound.
Right.
Yeah. But I meant, does particles have like a physical limit?
An upper limit? I don't know. It would probably just dim, down to
nothing.
Yeah.
So I guess to answer my question, it would all be about the pressurization of the cabin that you're in. So the air that's being pumped into the cabin of the space station, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I imagine that it's your room also, right? I mean your reflections. So I imagine there's not a whole lot of room, and the space station probably make a great recording studio. So if they do want to come up there, bring us up there, then I think we would have a really nice recording environment, because
Elon Musk, if you're listening to this video, please send us to space to make music. Yeah,
and space is like the infinite bass absorber of all time, right? Like nothing gets out. So you can't the International Space Station, I don't think, like, if there was like the other International Space Station, like they couldn't call up and be like, hey, your fucking music's too loud. You know? not gonna go over there. You know?
I love it.
Someone on the moon is gonna complain.
I don't see any reason why this music couldn't be on the Mars mission. You know, if we came up with something, I'd like to do like a forest piece or something. You talked about like meditative stuff where you have like bird songs or natural sounds worked into the patch, you know, so that it's like a, you know, whatever, that kind of thing would be kind of nice.
Well, that's what taps into the VR space, because if you are going to start, if we can get a visual person on board with this, then we start creating these visual VR spaces with sound and music. I think building a foundation off of the, like, let's say you're trying to build some like otherworldly room, like let's say you have a 3D space and you're trying to, like, kind of what like Bjork does in her videos where she is like on another planet basically, and it has all these sounds that she created that would be from that planet. It's like going in the same kind of aspect, you know, like but in a VR space where we're creating like the sound for this weird creature that would exist on this planet that we're on. Or we could even keep it even more simple and be like, we're in, you know, the forest in Haleiwa. Like, you know, and like go record the sounds from like where Hamama Falls is, you know, the gushing waterfall, the right birds chirping, and then like have Jeffrey's voice kind of come in and out, and then cello. It's just like kind of ways to approach that.
Yeah. I hope someday we get outside. I would love to make a recording in the field somewhere. You know, we all go camping and go make a record.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
That would be fun. We need those like what. We would just keep it as acoustic as possible. I think that'd be the best way to go about that.
Yeah, we do whatever.
Yeah.
We do whatever. I mean, we talk about getting a generator. You know,
well, they make those battery-powered solar things now that are quiet. I just don't know. I want to get one and see what it'll power, because generators create a hum. You know, we'd have to put it pretty far away. I just don't know. I don't know how far you can
I've looked them up on Amazon, and I mean, they're like tiny little battery boxes with solar panels you attach.
You got three or four of those. They're only $100-something bucks. You know, you got 3 or 4 of those. It'll power. It's just like how much equipment you want to lug around to.
Yeah, just battery stuff. You don't need anything more than that. I mean, that's the thing. I think this could work well in a festival setting. It could work well in a weird art gallery setting. It could work well in a movie theater. It could work well in
Carnegie Hall,
in your friend's house. Yeah, or Carnegie Hall.
Right. Why not?
Sure. I don't know.
I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, that makes me nervous immediately. It's like Carnegie Hall, would play all those people that are going to tear me to shreds in the New York Times.
We do our thing, and they like it, they don't, you know? Like, people literally rioted in Paris over the Rite of Spring. Like, if we don't get them to riot, we're not doing it right.
Right. People
I
aren't going
want
to remember
half
that.
the people to walk out on this.
If half
Surprise, there was a hit of acid on your program, on your bill.
If half the people don't hate it, we're not doing something right.
Okay. All right. I can get down with that. I that makes me feel a little better. You know, I think having some friction is a good thing. Probably. You read the reviews. Don't tell me about it. I'll be happy. That's it. Yeah.
Well, you know, something I always like to say: the opposite of love is not hate; it's indifference. If people really hate it, that means that they are somehow emotionally invested in it too. So it's also a compliment in a weird way. The worst thing is that I don't remember what that sounded like.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about something else. Yeah.
At least you're invoking some kind of emotion. If it's hate, it's hate. Like, if it's joy, it's
a
joy.
reflection of themselves. It's a mirror.
Yeah,
Brandon,
it is.
You get it.
Yeah, it is. I've been my own fountain of negative criticism, sure, for a lot of things, but it's it's in there and it gets you, and that'd actually be kind of an interesting thing to meditate on musically too. You know, like sort of. I mean, we take positive emotions, but the negative emotions do come out too. Not negative, but like. Yeah.
No, I know what you're talking about.
There's some.
What's that? I know what you're talking about because it makes us insecure. At least it makes me insecure when we're doing weird stuff. Like that's why sometimes like it gets a little too weird, and I flip it, and then I start to go back to what we originally had. but it's like a different version of it then. But that creates that like flow, you know. And I think that's important with any kind of like deep meditation or anything that you're doing is like the world, like Jeffrey was saying earlier, isn't just sunshine and rainbows. Sunshine and rainbows are important, but they're so beautiful because we experience days of rain and thunder and like crap, you know, like without that, you don't get the beauty.
Yeah.
As Dolly Parton says, you can't have the rainbow without a little bit of rain.
Yeah. There you go.
Absolutely.
God, I love Dolly. She's a saint.
You think Dolly Parton would get in with some slow drip DMT?
Dolly, you're a saint. I love you, and I would love to work with you someday.
It'll happen. I don't see, this is going to become a thing. I was laughing not at what you were saying, Alan, but I was laughing because it reminded me of that time we played at the place downtown, and the noise guy came on after. And he cleared the room because his music was painful. It was like painful.
But see,
and that's the one thing. The one rule is that the mix should never be painful. Like you should be able to crank the volume, and you should be loud and fucking blasting it, but it should never hurt your fucking ears. And that guy hurt my fucking ears.
I mean, I heard him when he went up to the sound guy. He said, "Keep it in the red." I just knew when he said that. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be intense." I
draw the line there. Nope, you can't have pain. That's not.
I mean,
okay. I get
it's kind of reckless at a point because you're affecting other people's ability to maintain their ears. Like, you know, you have a certain responsibility, I think, as a live performer, when it comes to that of, you know, being able to, I think that's what we do well, because we make people feel uncomfortable, but we also give them relief. You know, it's just not a constant 2 hours of noise, you know, and noise that will hurt and affect your eardrums and your listening later on in life, you know. And I think that's what's so great about
no pain.
No pain. With what you understand about mixing and mastering, and like even that first gig that we did at Anna O'Brien's, you went to the sound person. I remember this specifically, and you were like, just keep the levels, you know, kind of mild, like don't because a rock band was on before us. Was it Andy's group? I can't remember, but I think Andy was playing before us, and it was rock and roll. You know, it was loud. Then we took the stage and totally changed up the vibe, but I like that, you know. And we weren't killing people's ears, and we had, you know, what was it?
It worked great.
It worked great. And I think we pulled it off. And then the motorcycle, you remember the motorcycles revving up at the end? And then we started making our music to their revs. That was the fun part.
It works in a club setting.
Yeah, Skylar was like fangirling over it the whole time. It was so funny.
We got people to sit down on the dance floor too. They sat down and they listened. That's another thing that was a good reaction. It was like, okay, you know, like listen.
I mean, how many rock shows, Brandon, have you played in Honolulu? Or how many shows have you played in Honolulu? Have you ever had anybody just sit down and like give you their full attention?
No, never. I've played 100 shows at least. Everyone's trying to fucking kill each other.
Right, exactly. They're trying to get drunk and like mosh, and which it has its place, man. Some people like have aggression and they need to get that out, and that's where that's for. Yeah. And I think we tap into a different form of that. Mental aggression. Cool. Well, I'm glad we're all able to get together and have this chat, because this is the first time Jeffrey's gotten to meet everybody, and everybody's gotten to meet Jeffrey.
Nice to meet you.
And this has been an amazing. I wish we could do this more. I will keep pushing for this kind of stuff. I was telling Brandon before you guys got on with us, I want to kind of create a space where it's kind of like a podcast video form where I'm introducing experimental music to people, and just putting it out there, like having people submit music, us playing our music, and then like inviting them on to talk about it. And like, I don't want it to be rated. I just want it to be like, here's your thing. Let's talk about it. What was your process? And like kind of showcase people and showcase us, and like kind of showcase what's going on at Analog Rock Machine Studio with the people that you're working with. I think it would be a really great avenue for just all the projects across the board, plus projects that we don't even know about that people might watch it and want to be on the show and like stuff like that. So I think I'm going to start trying to cultivate that.
Do it.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
But yeah. Other than that,
Yeah.
It was so good to finally meet you all.
Nice
After
to
we
meet you.
created something very beautiful together.
I
It's
know,
kind of
right?
funny. But
That's kind of
yeah,
that's kind of the best way to meet people. You
in
know?
a way, yeah. We already have this bond.
Yeah.
So
eternal.
I hope we get to see each other in person soon, all of you guys. And
Yeah.
thank you for thanks for trusting me with the mix. I do welcome any feedback, so please let me know if there's stuff that we need to fix before our release date, and I'll
Chris,
work
you're
on
a
it.
visionary, and it's
for all your
perfect.
time on that too.
You're a visionary, and it's perfect.
yeah, I don't have that.
Pioneer.
take the compliment, Chris.
Thank you. Too kind. But no, it's a collective effort.
It is.
And that's
But-
and I'm having fun learning this stuff. Dude, this is the first time. So it's a first.
We're all
It's a
pushing
first
ourselves.
for a lot of things.
That's awesome.
I'm not holding my breath,
Me
but
either.
get the video people. Video people, we need video people.
Yes, I'm working on it. I'm reaching out. I think Hannah's the circle that she runs in, and as soon as we get tapped into this reality here in San Francisco, once things open up, I'm gonna find the right person. I truly believe it.
Great.
Cool, guys. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you, and we made magic.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. You guys have a great night.
Yeah.
All right, you too.
See you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
How do you do this?
Make sure you get this too. Like, how the fuck do you hang up on this?